What's up guys, Zenari here, and today I'm going to be doing a premium deck profile for Refiarade. So I finally got my premium collection stuff, my Hotrudas and my Larus, with also the critical triggers, and I'm just going to be showcasing just a fun deck. I'll be showcasing a couple of fun decks for the next couple of deck profiles, so I hope you guys enjoy. So the first card we are going to go over is Vermeer Triangle Cadet Shizuku. So this card is just meant to help filter out your grade 3s, to search for your Refiarades, and to be able to pull off the Vanguard rewrite from hand from Rock. So this is just a good way to filter out your cards in your deck, to be able to search for the specific grade 3s that you want. You can even search to heal Guardians with this, and it's pretty good. You can opt to run the V-Series starter as well, but we're playing a grade 2 that helps you reuse this card as much as you can to be able to find your Refiarades, as well as provide a source of countercharge and soul for the deck. So we're going to go on to the grade 1s. We're playing 4 of Mermaid Idol Senna. Senna's here to allow you to hit those numbers of 13k or greater, and to be able to search for Refiarades, search for heal Guardians. It's just another consistency piece for the deck, and on a quiet Refiarade you're able to swing for at least 23 minimum without hitting a trigger, so that's nice that you want to have this card in your deck to be able to, again, consistently find your Refiarades and your heal Guardians. Next, we're playing 3 Cuddle Connect Vanessa. So the purpose of her in this deck is that we do use soul a little bit to be able to countercharge, and finesse is just a way to be able to increase that soul, put back any Refiarades or heal Guardians from your drop zone, and you can draw cards from it. As well as with Rock, you need to be able to have all of your force markers have a rest rear guard, so if you have any boosters in the back row that don't have a force marker, Rock will not activate. So she's just a way to clear herself out of the rear guard circle to be able to proc Rock on your stride turns, or even on your grade 3 turn. Next, we're playing a very old card, 2 Duo Clear Perso Cora. So she has a simple ability just to be able to Soul Blast 2 to countercharge 2, basically. It is a 5k, so that's why I don't run it as multiple copies. You can add an extra one in this deck. I have another one of tech if you want to be able to do that. So she's just here because Rock costs 2 CB, and you want to be able to refund that and not have to be CB choked out of the game. Next, this will be a common theme in most of my deck profiles. I'm running 3 Light Elemental Honolee. So since the new premium collection is out, a lot of more clans has a lot of multi-attack, like Galley, the Morikumo Stride, Aqua Force, and still of the top tier clans like Bermuda, Pale Moon, etc, etc. You want to be able to survive, so calling down Honolee from your G guards, or just calling 2 down in the early game, can really help you survive your opponent's stride turn, and it can really mess up your opponent. In this deck, since you use CB a lot, however, as long as you have your counter chargers and other things and manage your resources well, you'll be able to just call Honolee down and stop their plays. Lastly, for the grade 1s, I'm running 1 Equitable Career Spiana. So Spiana is just another Cora, not as great or consistent as Cora when it comes to countercharge, but it's an 8k and is a 10k shield. I didn't want to have a lot of cards that had lower power shields, since I'm already running Honolee and Cora. I don't want to end up riding another 5k or 6k to be rushed out of the early game. So this is just another way to get your countercharge. Although not as great as Cora, it's just another way to be able to countercharge. Now on to the grade 2s. First off, we're gonna start with the staple for top auto Aqua. So Aqua is here to be able to reuse Senna, to reuse Koras if you need to, reuse Spianas, and to be able to consistently find your grade 3s was Senna. So that's why I play her as a 4 of in this deck, and she also can hit 15 by herself if there's another unit in the same column as her. So on your grade 3 turn with Refiarade, she's able to hit 25 as long as you have another unit behind her, which is still a pretty good number. Next, we're playing 4 Interesting Hope Shizuku. So Shizuku works together with Shizuku to be able to search your grade 3s in your deck. So you use Shizuku first, you counterboss 1, put her in the soul, look at the top 5 cards of your deck. You can reveal up to a grade 3, and then she'll go into soul. Since Shizuku soul blasts a card, you can put her back into your hand, and then if you do, if you return a grade 0 Shizuku, you can soul charge 1 and counter charge 1, and she gets 5k power. So she can hit 14, which is okay. On a force marker, that's 24. That's still okay. It's not as great as Aqua, but it allows you to counter charge if you need to, and to be able to just dig deeper for those grade 3s that you need. So that's why I'm playing Shizuku in the deck. Lastly, for the grade 2s, this is a new addition to my testing. I'm playing 4 from Colorful Pastoral Sonata. So numbers is a struggle in this deck, even though you're restanding, well, technically restanding twice with your Vanguard. If you have multiple Sonatas on the field, like 2 or 3 of them, they can at least hit 20k to 25k by themselves, and you can dig through your deck pretty well since Refiarade gets triple drive, and then once you're striding and you filter off Aqua, you should be able to find more Sonatas. And she's also just a 15k swing on grade 2, so at minimum she can at least hit 15k without a booster, depending on some matchups that you want to have more cards in your hand, or you just want to pressure your opponent without committing that much. Sonata can help you do that. Now on to the grade 3s. The main ride of this deck is Silent Quiet Refiarade. So with her on your turn 3, you want to be able to get 3 force markers, and then to be able to pressure your opponent with your stride turns. Then after that, you want to be able to use rock. So you want to be able to ride Refiarade, well, this Refiarade first, to be able to accelerate your win con, which is to get 3 Vanguard restands with a couple of strong powered rear guard columns before that. So Refiarade allows you to do that, as well as if you do not want to stride for whatever reason, and you feel like it's better to just sit on Refiarade to like deny a turn of damage, or to add like 5 cards to your hand to be able to get ready to end the game, then you can do that with this card. But caution you that there are probably some decks that are able to punish you for not striding, but Refiarade is probably one of the only cards that allows you to successfully make cards in your hand without striding as much. So you want to be able to ride Refiarade, Quiet Refiarade first. Next, one of the win cons of this deck, I've been saying it so far throughout the video, Detonate Singer Refiarade Rock. So it's very important to be able to rewrite it from hand. If you reveal it from your drive check and then you have another Rigard swinging, you can still use rock skill. A lot of cards in the meta now are starting to get like denial plays, or plays to remove your rear guards. Even if they are removed, it's still counted as a battle, so you can still do rock. However, as long as they're not like completely removed, you're still able to use rock skill. On some matchups, you just have to be careful of what cards do remove it. Not all of the cards from Premium Collection remove it. They kind of just neg crit or become a perfect guard. The matchups like Narukami, Kagero, is sometimes like Pale Moon, Harry, that are able to do the Denial Griffin play, or even Grand Blue. You do have to be cautious of that. And there are other cards you can play to try to prevent that from happening, so you can use Rock. But most of the time, it will cost them more resources than you, depending on some of the Denial plays. So yeah, that is all for the grade 3s. On to the grade 0s. We are playing 2 Aqua Light Ardo. So for this deck, of course, you want Soul for Kura. This is just another way to add Soul for it. You don't need that much in this deck, but it's just a nice way to draw a card and to add a card to Soul, as well as the power to Vanguard. Also, she's another way to clear off your rearguard circles. So if you boost like another rearguard column with her, and then you attack with your Vanguard, you can move her to the Soul. You can draw a card, and then you can still perform Refiarade skill, Refiarade Rock skill from hand. So again, we don't need that much Soul. This is another option to be able to remove itself and to add cards into Soul. Next, we are playing one of Dreamer Crook. Crook is just an extra extender for attacking. As long as she isn't on a force marker in the back row, you can use her skill, which is the optimal play, because if all of your rearguards don't have a force marker, you won't be able to use Rock. So you use her on a non-force column and just be able to extend an extra attack. So you can bounce back Sonata, you can bounce back Aqua, Korra, anything you need, honestly. It's at 1 because it is restricted to 1 on the Bushiroad restriction list. So use this card wisely. Next, we have one of the Overtrigger. Overtrigger's OP. If you check in this deck, you're putting on a lot of pressure to your opponent. And check it defensively. Of course, you get the 100 million power. All of your rearguards get 10,000 power to the end of fight. So the longer the game goes on, the harder it is for your opponent to keep defending against your attacks. There is an interaction with her with Silent Refiarade. So if you check her for her ability, you add it to hand, but you do not. You get the 100 million power, but you do not get the effect of all your rearguards get 10,000 power to the end of the fight, because it was not during a drive check. It was during an effect from your Vanguard. So this works the same as Amaterasu. I'm not Amaterasu. Susanoo, and same as that premium collection Stride for OTT. So if your opponent plays this deck and reveals Refiarade, uses Refiarade, reveals the OT, they do not activate that second ability of all your rearguards get 10,000 power to the end of the fight. So next, for the triggers, these are pretty self-explanatory. Running 4 draw perfect guards, Glittery Baby Linne. You want to be able to draw your pieces into in this deck, so you want to draw your Aquas for more power, Sentinels for more power, consistency, and your counter chargers, your Honolees for specific matchups. And being a perfect guard is really nice to be able to stop attacks. You could opt to play grade 1 PGs in your deck if you don't like Honolee, but I recommend playing the draw perfect guards to be able to draw more cards in this deck. Next, we have 4 of the Heal Guardians. So the Heal Guardian is nice in this deck because we play Finessa. You're able to send it back, shuffle your deck with abilities, able to check more heals, allows you to survive the early game, and thanks to our new G guards and our G guards in general, we're able to survive a lot longer with these. And it's searchable since we're playing the Shirasuyu Shizuku engine. So if you need a desperately early game and your opponent gives you damage, you're able to just dig for it, search it. So that's really nice. And yeah, I'm really glad that this is being reprinted in the next set for V, which is coming up soon. it just allows Bermuda to have a better defensive early game. Lastly, we have 4 of Wrapping Chorus Trudy. So this card is very important. This is at a 4 of. You need 4 of this card because you do not want to be discarding any Refiarades to Stride. Even like additional rocks can be additional Vanguard swings later in the turn. Unless you have Spiana in your hand to countercharge or Finesse to put it back to the bottom of the deck or something, you want to save those Refiarades in your hand. You want to re-rise Silence in case you use Refiarade early game, and you want to be able to just keep swinging with your Vanguard as much as you can, as long as it doesn't overextend you or choke you out of Counterblast. So that's what you're playing 4 of Trudy for, to be able to consistently re-ride and not to discard cards from hand for striding. Before we get on to the G Zone, we need to talk about which marker you're going to be using. Force 1 or Force 2. In this deck, you want Force 1. Force 2 does not work well in this deck because your rear guards aren't getting power and you aren't successfully like pressure your opponent, and your Vanguard is not huge. It will be just 13k with 2 crit, which is not threatening at all. You want Force 1 in this deck. Yeah, that's pretty much it for the markers. I don't think there's any situation where you would go Force 2. Even if you think you will win the game, I wouldn't really test my luck with that, nor have I tested it with Force 2, since this deck wants you to re-ride with Refiarade Rock instead with a huge Vanguard than just swinging with 13k and 2 crit. So yeah, we want to use Force 1 in this deck. Now on to the strides. Now we have our main one con of the deck, and that is Shushu popular favorite Tira. So Tira is a restander. It's a free restander, and if you bot deck all of your rear guards, you can still use her effect to be able to restand herself. And then once you attack with your last rear guard, you can use Rock to be able to re-ride from hand. So that's the whole purpose of this deck, to be able to get to Tira, get to GB3, so you might want to G-guard before or stride at least once, and essentially use Refiarade on your first grade 3 turn, get 3 force markers, or just get 1, it works for 1. Attack with your rear guard. It says Tira can bot deck all the other cards that aren't on a force marker. Attack with that one last rear guard, and then you can ride Rock from your hand, and you get essentially 3 Vanguard attacks. Although a CB2 for Rock, Tira is free, it doesn't cost extra counterblast. So that's the main point of this deck, is to use Tira and then use Rock. Next, for the strides, we have 2 Dearly Desired Grand Sage Shani. So this could be any 2 cards that you want, honestly. I put this in the deck to be able to search Korras, to dig for Honolees, to dig for Finessas if I need to have Soul or to clear rear guards. You can call Sonatas for extra attacks. It's just a card to be able to dig for specific pieces that you want. If you don't like the 2 Shani, you don't have to. You can play anything else at your leisure. Next, we are playing 1 Lucky Rife Elprina. So Elprina basically is this here for the Order Colony matchup. If your rear guards are rested, you can't bounce because you don't have any Aquas or anything. You can just bounce them to hand. Also, it's a way to get to GB1 first stride without having to Heltruda. Because Heltruda is such a heavy costed stride, especially with the discarding. You want a way to do something on your turn. Now, granted, this could be any other card that flips before to get to GB2, but I think Elprina is okay in his deck to be able to just dig for, to reuse Sennas and to reuse cards. So like if you have Shiratsu, you can use her twice in a turn instead of just once. And if you have Aqua, you can use Shiratsu 3 times and Shizuku 3 times if you need to get heals, to get Refiarades, and to be able to compress your deck. So that's why I think Elprina is a pretty okay choice for this deck. Next, we're playing one Perfect Performance Anj. Since this deck uses a lot of Counterblast, I don't have enough room to use a second one, but this is really here just for a Link Joker matchup. And if you're behind, you can always just sit on Refiarade as long as you have 3 force markers. It essentially get the same thing as Anj, but for a cheaper cost. Although there are times where if your opponent calls like a Honolee during their turn, you can always just stride into this, bounce it back, and then if you have Korra or a couple other cards that you drew into like Spiana, or you play any other counter chargers, as long as you have Rock, you can also just rewrite over Anj too. Rock works with any stride as long as you have a Refiarade Vanguard, which we're playing math copies for that reason. Next, we're playing one Ready Ocean Heltruda. So the only reason why I'm playing one instead of like 2 or multiple copies is because of that, the Counterblast cost and the discard cost. This deck doesn't gain a lot of hand size, so using Heltruda after like Heltruda and then attack with Refiarade and then Rock, that's like 3 CB in a turn, which it's standard, sorry, not standard, in V Premium it's a lot more manageable because the game could be a little bit slower depending on the deck you're fighting. But in Premium, most of your turns, most of the games end on second stride or even sometimes first stride with this new set. So you don't want to be able to like choke yourself out if you don't have enough damage, and you don't want to overextend and your opponent can survive the turn. So that's why I'm only playing one Heltruda. There'll be other decks that use more than just one, but just for this deck, I'm only using one. Next, for the last 2 strides, we have one of Progenitor of DC Ballerina. So Ballerina is in case your opponent is at like high damage and you have a bunch of grade 1s in your hand, and you feel like Rock won't kill with Tira, and you know they don't have a lot of Sentinels, but you know they have a G guard that does have a perfect guard effect. You can just stride into this, and then you can attack, and then you can use Rock after this. So is this another way to pressure after they use like their PGs? Then you can use Rock, and then you can hit them with a surprise. Although the guarding skill won't be there anymore, they already used their perfect guards guarding the last attacks, so they probably weren't expecting you to rewrite after that. So I never really used it in any of my testing or just games that I played, but it's always there just in case. And also it's good against Order Colony, so if you don't have enough targets to rewrite, you can always stride for free. And like I said, you can stride into Elprina to be able to bounce and do stuff during your turn. Oh, as well as against Order Colony, if your Vanguard's at rest, you can still ride Rock from hand as well as you have Refiarade in your hand. Lastly, for the strides, we have one Zerov Dragon of Distant Sea Megiddo. So I never really used the Megiddo. It's been a while since I ever used the Megiddo. Megiddo is just in case I don't have any other options left, and I can only like have a ditch effort to win at that time. Like if I have no cards in hand for some reason and I top deck Refiarade, I could just stride into this and try to hope I can win the game. Now you can do if you have like 4 counterblasts open, and if you don't call like a bunch of rear guards, so say like you call like 2 on the force markers that you made, or if you have 3 or more, you just keep attacking with descendants in your drop zone for like over 25k. Then you can use the rock. Like, there's a bunch of combinations you can do with rock, but it just depends on the situation as open to you. So yeah, that is all for the strides. Now let's go over to G Guardians. First, we're gonna go over Bless Sparkle Sandy. So Sandy in this deck allows you to get more of a generation break, but that's not the main reason of it. It's sometimes because if you sit on Refiarade, silent Refiarade, you can build a pretty big hand, especially if you have 5 force markers, and you can get 5 cards in your hand. If you draw into like a heal, you can have a pretty big shield. And sometimes after some of the cards that you use, like Finessa, Ardell, some of the cards that you might play in your deck, you will have a pretty sizable hand that you can use Sandy. The CB skill is optional to be able to get extra 5k shield, so she's at least a minimum of 20k. But it's up to you. You don't have to play 2. You can play just up to 1 if you want. Next, we're playing 1 hand-to-hand Leona. Hand-in-hand Leona. So, Leona is here if you have like a grade 1 in the back row, like a Senna, and you don't want to have to throw a lot of cards to guard. You can bounce back a V-Series grade 1 and call it, and it gets an extra 5k shield. So it's 30k shield for a card from the field to the Guardian Circle. She's free, so she doesn't cost anything like the new G Guardian. And yeah, sometimes you want to bounce back your important pieces, like if you have a Korra, and you want to reuse it for your next turn, you can bounce it back, but you have to call a card to Guardian Circle. She has many uses, but you don't really need that many copies in this deck. In some other decks you might, but not for Refiarade, not this one. Next, we're playing 1 High Society Citron. Now, this could be a 2 of, if you want to replace it with the Sandy, but essentially she allows you to just call Honolee during your opponent's battle phase, or just call like a grade 2 so you get intercept with it. She's a 25k shield minimum, so it helps in some situations where you don't have a lot of shield in your hand. So Citron's a good card just to be able to get that 25k shield threshold. Lastly, of the G Guardians, we're playing 2 Diva Salvation LaRousse. So LaRousse is really good. Even though this deck runs a lot of CB, I had some games with a friend of mine, and there was like a 80k attack that I had to defend. Albeit I hit like a trigger in a 5k defensive, but her alone got 30k shield, and I guarded with 2 grade 1s, so I was able to survive the turn with it. So Counterblasting return the normal unit to your hand, and she essentially is a 30k shield, is really good. And the second ability is some other decks to bounce a grade 3. You're able to just be on 18k or greater depending on the build you're making. And she's like a really good card. Although it's a counterblast and that can be tight for some decks, I think it's really, really strong to be able to essentially protect yourself against high-powered attacks that require like 2 or more cards to guard with. And that is it for the deck profile. So this is just a fun deck for anyone to try. Since a lot of the staples except Leona are reprinted or they're like really cheap. Hotruda is new, and she's about a decent price for a stride. You don't need that much in this deck. You don't even need to play Hotruda if you want to. This deck is just really fun. It's not a very competitive deck. I mean, if you want to make it competitive, you can, but it's just a fun way to try out some of the other Bermuda cards from the clan to see how they work in premium. You could probably hit some pretty funny numbers, have some great games with some of your friends, and yeah, it's just a fun deck to be able to experiment with. So if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe and comment. I could do a combo deck profile or a combo video for this deck specifically and other decks in the future. And if you enjoyed, make sure to yeah, just leave a comment or anything. I will be doing a lot more of these in the future, and I'll be doing one relatively soon. So if you guys enjoyed, I'm Zenarion, and I'm signing off.